All right, guys, I look forward to every episode, but this one, just really been looking forward to it. I can tell you, I've had some of my favorite people on the planet on this podcast, but this one's extra special for me because after having my bride, Melissa, on the show a couple of times, I can already tell you that our next guest is my second favorite guest of all time. I can say that with total confidence because this week we are talking with our son, Alex Matthews. Alex is 19 and he's got his first book just being released this next week. It's a 500 plus page coming of age thriller called Waking Up. We're going to be talking with Alex about the book itself, the story behind it, his creative process, and kind of some of the important things he's learned along the way of going after a creative dream like this. And just to give you a little bit more background on Alex before we get started, Alex is a full-time student at an acting school in Los Angeles, but I'll say he's home for just a little bit during this weird, wild season that we find ourselves in. Alex had to deal with some tough stuff early in life, but I think that actually contributed to being, wildly creative and incredibly adventurous. And it also led him to be very active in theater and speech and in creative writing in school. Plus, he and our older son, Ben, have made 30 plus short films in just these last few years. So he's got an incredible journey already at 19, and I'm so excited for you to meet him. So let's get to this. Alex Matthews, welcome to Dream Think Do, buddy.
Thank you, Dad.
How about that? That's a first on this show, right?
Right? Yep.
I love it. Well, this is going to be cool. Welcome to your first. Is this your first podcast as a guest? You have your own podcast,
Right.
a theatrical podcast, right? But
Yeah.
This is your first podcast as a guest.
Right. I have to be me. So
You have to be you. No characters.
No
Acting. Maybe I might have you act something out. We'll see. But
right.
no acting. You get to be you. So this is good.
Cool.
This is gonna be good. All right. So we got so much to cover. It's gonna be so much fun. But I know kind of the excuse is the book. Like the excuse to have this conversation right now is the book. So let's tell people about it just a little bit to lay some groundwork on background on the book, how it came into being, all that kind of stuff. So the book's called Waking Up. Probably going to be the first in a series of 3, right? So how do you describe Waking Up?
So Waking Up is it's kind of a tough emotional story, to be completely honest. It follows a 17-year-old named Alex, and he basically loses everything in his life on his 17th birthday, all because of this outbreak in his city. And it's about how he deals with that and all of the decisions he has to make as a 17-year-old battling this crazy outbreak. And he has to make this decision of if he's going to keep his values that he learned from his family, or if he's going to have to change. And he sees the best and worst in people, and so it just kind of his struggle through life. So it's a very, very crazy story. So.
It is a wild story with lots of twists and turns, and it's very interesting that we're launching it right now. You've written the book. You've been working on the book since, what do we figure out? How old were you when you started?
15.
15 years old is when you started this book. The series, really, right. It's going to be a series because it's so epic, right. Which is true. But you're launching this right now at a very weird and wild time. But when you started writing this, you had no idea that we were going to be in a crisis. As you read the book, you'll find out it's like, there's some similarities here that are a little interesting. So let's talk about how this all got started, because you were 15. And this book and the series is really based on a series of dreams you had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when I was 12, 13 years old, I had these crazy vivid dreams of this like zombie apocalypse. Yeah. And I had all these stories in the dreams. And what was crazy about these was that I would go to sleep, have a crazy dream, wake up, go about my day, go back to bed. And when I started to dream again, it picked right off where I left off. And
Yeah.
that would happen for like 2 weeks.
And it was an interesting pattern because, I mean, and I can tell you from, being someone involved in that story,
Right.
like when they first started happening, it did not feel like a blessing at all. It did not feel like, oh, finally, we've gotten a book. We've got the basis for a
Eureka.
book. You really woke up. I remember the first couple, you really woke up and they were scary and they were nightmares. There was no
Mhm.
doubt about it. And
Mhm.
I can remember us kind of saying, well, especially when you started to notice, they were really kind of picking up in the same spot. Like you would
Mhm.
leave a dream, and we've all
Mhm.
had wacky dreams because of pizza or a bad burrito or too much coffee or whatever. And they're sporadic, they're all over the place. But this really it was sequenced. Like you would go to bed and it would kind of pick up almost immediately. So I can remember saying, us talking about like, what would be a good way to navigate this? And I think you even said, maybe I should write some of this stuff down.
Mhm. Mhm. So I kept, yeah,
Yeah.
so I kept some journals, and you guys helped me through it, and yeah, I just wrote it all down. So,
It's wild. And then it just kind of sat there. It wasn't like instantly, you know what, I should write a book. But a
mhm.
few years later, what was it that sparked it for you to say, maybe I should turn this into something?
Yeah, I was I had kind of read through my journals again when I was 15, and I was looking at all the stories, and I was like, man, that I forgot about that. These are crazy. And I had to think, okay, so what can I do with this? I mean, they
Yeah.
happened, they were wild. What's something I could do? And I was like, hey, I guess we're just gonna write a book. But
Why
I
not?
started, you're right. I started looking at all the stories, and they were out of order, chronological wise. So I started putting them together, and I could create this outline of a story. And I was like, huh, okay, let's start. Let's just try it. And at 15, I started using my mom's computer,
Yep.
just on the first chapter, using this outline of all these crazy dreams, and it started to piece this story together. So
Yeah, I remember you starting to talk about it. And I think at 15, there were 1,000 different things going on, life, learning to drive, all
yes.
those kinds of things. You started bringing up the book and, you've always been adventurous. You've always been creative,
Hmm.
but, sometimes we'd have a topic come up and then it would go away. But
Hmm.
I think maybe mom did walk into her office and there you were typing away on her
Hmm.
computer,
Yeah.
just putting this story together. Right. And that's what we were like, okay, there's something to this. So we just kind of started to say, all right, how can we help? Those kinds of things. But you really just started to kind of work out a creative process. Talk us through a little bit of that creative process. Cause in some ways, God bless, you've had some incredible teachers. You've had a couple of creative writing classes, all those kinds of things, but there's never been a class that said, here's how to write a coming to age horror slash thriller novel, right? So
Hmm.
you kind of had to figure that out for yourself. How did you what was your process of saying, okay, how do I try to put this story together?
Right. I think it was so helpful to have an outline, because to try and have all of those stories in my head as I was writing would have just been insane. And so as I was writing, I would add more and more to the outline and all these things. And so without like a base of an
Yeah.
outline to have, then I would have gone crazy. But it was also just kind of just like accepting that this was not going to be an easy thing, but not letting that take over.
Hmm.
And because if I had thought about it and been like, this is kind of a crazy thing to do during high school, it's kind of wild, I probably wouldn't have done it. But if I just put that aside, I was like, it's okay. Like, this doesn't have to see the light of day. Let's just see where this goes. If
Yeah.
this is just for me, that's awesome. If it's not, we'll work with that. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it just really was all about mindset with this book. So
I agree.
yeah.
It's probably every book, but especially, I mean, it's kind of for this book, it's such a great example. I think, what I just heard was you gave yourself permission to say, hey, it's going to be hard, but that doesn't mean it's bad, right? That's just means I'm going to do it. Right. But then also kind of giving yourself that permission to not have the pressure of this has got to be a bestseller or if everybody's got to love this. It may never be anything anybody ever sees anytime, but it still would be worthwhile to try it. So I love that. So then it started to flow, and it really was a couple of years of working on this story, writing it out. I can remember we'd be on vacations and you would take your laptop with you and you would look forward to long drives or long, flights, because that would give you a few hours to plug away at this thing. At what point did you start to think, maybe I want to show it to people? Like, I would imagine that had to be one of the scarier parts of this thing.
For sure. That was definitely the hardest part, was the realization of, if this is going to become a book, it's got to be read by people. So
right.
That was kind of scary for a high schooler because, we got so many things going on. So they also have to show people, something you've been working on for years. That was pretty terrifying, but it was incredibly, incredibly worth it. So.
Yeah. So, I know when we talked before, I want to go back and get this, and then we're going to come back and check this, or, dig into this a little bit deeper. But one of the things that I kind of assumed would be that, like, one of the voices in your head, and maybe that's just because one of the voices in my head sometimes, like, is that, who are you to, in this case, write a book, right? Especially when you're in high school, all of that. I know that's a voice that, that's kind of one of those imposter syndrome verses, right? That who are you to stand in front of this group? Who are you to teach these people? Who are you to lead this group? All of those things. But that's not really a voice you had to deal with. And I want to dig into that just a little bit. Why was that not necessarily something you had to deal with? I mean, you had plenty of other challenges, but why do you think that you didn't bump into that voice?
Well, I think I was really, really inspired by, all the books that I had read previously and all the, the cool movies and TV shows I'd watched that, there's stories everywhere and they were so engaging and cool. And, as I was reading those stories, I never thought, oh, well, these people are 30 years and older. These people have already lived some part of their life and all these things. And I was just like, these are people who have stories to tell. This is awesome. I love these books. So when these stories came together and the outline was finished and I was writing, I never thought, oh shoot, I'm not 30. I have to stop. Like, I was just like, I have a story to tell. I want to tell this story. And I think, that it was just a big part of it was just being like, it's okay that I'm in high school writing. I don't have to be older to be doing this. So it's super important to never set like these walls that'll keep you from doing stuff like that, because it's who's going to tell you no. It's like, just do it, just go for it, just try it. And if it doesn't work out, that's fine, but at least you tried it and can like always remember that. So even if the book hadn't gone anywhere, like if I had decided, all right, I'm done, the idea that I was like to start it, even, I mean, I was excited to even just start it. So yeah.
I love that. When you and I were talking about it off mic, right? When we hadn't hit record, I was like, I'm fascinated by that. I think that's fantastic. You were walking in some freedom there, which I think is just incredible. You've got a story to tell. Why put parameters on yourself of you got to be 25 or 30 or you have to have this degree or whatever? It's like, sure, those experiences will always, they can add to it, but hey, there's no restrictions, right? Why would you put limits on yourself? So I love that. But speaking of that, though, you did have some challenges. You did have some fears, right? And I know when we started to talk about this, one of the fears that really did come up, and again, when you were starting the process, you're in college now, but when you were starting this process, you were still in high school. And when you were starting to put some chapters out there, now like the peer thing is wild, right? So, so you had to kind of find ways like you said, it's like, okay, if this is going to be a book, if I am going to actually have people read it, I guess I should have people read it. So
Mm-hmm.
how did you start to kind of work your way into that? You didn't say, aha, my whole book is done.
Right.
How did you kind of find ways to work into that gradually?
Yeah, because it was certainly a process, and it took me such a long time to get it all figured out and all these things. And
Yeah.
so when I had gotten the first couple chapters ready to go, and I was like, oh, whoa, this is coming together. I was like, I should show my friends. And I was like, but wait, they're busy with math homework. So let's see, what can I do?
Algebra.
Right.
Right.
Sorry. Stupid algebra. What I kind of had to do was, whereas like when my brother and I would release a short film, we put it on YouTube. There wasn't like a whole lot at the time that I knew about where you could just like release a chapter of something and just see. So I kind of had to look into it, and I found this like rinky dinky app called Wattpad at the time. Now it's like a cool thing, but back then it was like, I don't really know what this is.
It looked like
okay.
seriously something out of a back alley. I'm kind of like, are you sure?
Like, it's gonna be stolen right away.
Exactly right.
Yeah. So I just kind of was like, well, I gotta kind of prepare for when I need to work with people in editing this. So I just put it out there on this app called Wattpad, sponsored. And
that's right. This podcast brought to you by
Wattpad. So I put it out there, and what was cool was like, at the time, 3 likes on my first chapter was huge.
That was a big deal.
I was like, whoa, like people gave me a like. That's so cool. And I had a couple people, because I put it out on my social media, like a link into my Instagram of the Wattpad chapters. And so I had a few people from high school just message me like, hey, that's cool, you wrote a book. And that was enough to be like, oh, okay, I could continue doing this, and people will support me. So it was like, it took kind of a lot of oomph to post it at first, but once I did and got those 3 likes and that 1 comment, I was like, hey, okay, I can keep going with this. So yeah.
And you kind of figured out that you'd live whether people were going to be supportive or not. You're like, okay, I guess I lived through that, so I can keep going, right?
I did not die after I posted it. I was like, whoa, it's a miracle.
Right. I still woke up the next morning. Okay, wow. That's success.
We keep going.
I love it. Well, and I know that, when we started this, obviously you're in a weird household. We raised you weird, it's like, hey, it's good to pursue goals and dreams that are a little different than maybe those around you, which is awesome. But you were also moving in, you were kept going deeper into new water, right? Mm-hmm. So, and some of the water we were somewhat familiar with. I've written a couple of books, but I told you straight up, I've never delved into fiction. Fiction kind of intimidates me even more, all that stuff, right? So it was one of those things where some of it we had to navigate together, and some of it you really did just continue to pursue on your own. And you just kept writing, because the first book is 500 pages. I know the second and third books, we won't go too deep into those, but those are right around the corner. They are significantly long as well. So like this really took a serious amount of time. But that next step was saying, okay, you've had a little peer review, like you kept putting it out there, having some of your peers check it out. But then we were like, all right, how do we take it to this next level? And so we started to look for some additional help. Tell us a little bit about that process.
Yeah. So thankfully you set me up with someone named Devin Mooneyham, who is an incredible editor. But I had to figure out a way to pay for an editor. And you guys
because we should, let's talk a little bit about that, because it was an investment and we wanted to help with it somewhat, but we've always had the thing of we're all in, but that means you pay at least a chunk, right?
Yep. Right. Yeah. And she was excited to help, but she like, of course, was, a working editor at the time. So you guys were super supportive as well, but it wouldn't have probably felt right even if I hadn't had to pitch in. I wanted to do something. And so what I did was my grandpa told me that he was taking a couple weeks to help clean college dorms.
Yep. He helps to
Yeah.
kind of run and maintain a number of
Yeah.
college apartment complexes. Yep.
hmm And I was like, well, that would pay for an editor. So I cleaned college dorms for, I think it was a week and a half.
Yeah, almost 2 weeks. Like
And
hardcore 12-hour
yeah,
days.
it was
Probably way too much exposure to
yeah,
oven cleaner.
the horror stories.
All the best and worst of
Right.
humanity with college apartments.
Yep.
But yeah, you did that for almost 2 weeks.
Yeah, that was wild.
And that money all went towards
Yeah.
editing books.
So yeah, and so I was like, this is it had gotten to that point where I was like, this is more than just kind of a thing to do, after school. This is the thing I want to pursue. And so when I committed to that and worked with Devin, it was such a at first scary thing to be like, read it, like give me feedback
and read it with a fine-tooth comb, right? Like it's not just, do you like it? It's like, whoa, yeah.
You have to dot the I's and all that sort of stuff. But it was like she was so kind and understood that it was my first novel, that it was like me putting out a story for the first time.
Yep.
So she did an amazing job of going through it, and it was a relieving experience to actually talk with someone about the story. It's a very weird thing to like write this story and then somebody else knows the story as well after all these years of just keeping it to yourself and like figuring it out. And it's like, wow, that's cool. So so that was a really cool experience to get to go through it. And then I worked with Devin for a while, and then
months. Like you guys worked for months.
It was a long time. And then we were able to we decided, we were like, originally it was just one book, and we decided it was like, this needs to be a series, which was kind of a cool experience. So to get to figure out how to turn it into 3 books. So
I'll never forget when Devin reached out to me, because I connected you guys. I mean, it was, Devin was in my network. I've known Devin for a long time. And it was funny. She reached out to me. I don't know if I told you, but she reached out to me because I'm kind of like, hey, I hadn't read it. I still haven't read it. I told you that one of my goals with this is I'm going to read it when we get it in paperback form, because I just wanted it to be your story, all those things. But she reached out to me, I think it was Facebook message, and was like, have you read this? And I'm like, oh, crud. Maybe she was going to be really nice.
Get him some therapy. Like, seriously.
That's right. But she's like, no, it's really good. Like, it's really good. And that was really neat because, obviously I know she was being encouraging to you, but it's like, I think there's a part, maybe I think even a part of you that was kind of wondering, is she just being nice because I paid her to be an editor? But you guys really did hash through the story. She really challenged you on some different characters and story arcs and all of those kinds of things. So you guys really hashed it out and worked for a long period of time. Then you kind of took it back, continued to work on it. And then what was next?
Yeah. So I just kind of continued to work with it. I'd read over a paragraph, and the thing that's so hard about writing is that you'll write a paragraph of something and then a week later look at it again and just rewrite the whole thing. There's just always this like process of like just constantly going back and just re-editing.
So make this better. Yeah.
Right. It's like, what did you do? Why did you say it like that? And it's like, it's just like always, it feels like something could even be better.
Yeah.
So that's such a like difficult thing, but you just push through. And then it was so cool as we got to a point where I had taken some time to kind of focus on my senior year of high school, and the book was still there, but there was just a lot going on with theater and graduating and all that stuff. And finally I was like, I need to get back to work on this. And what was so cool is that one of my classmates, her name is Abby Bishop, she volunteered to read through it again and just give it one last edit through, and she did an amazing job as well. And that was cool because she really went for it just as much as Devin did. And it was like it was like, it was awesome to see, because she was, let's see, I think she was 17,
Yeah,
17 when
probably.
she edited it. And so like, it kind of came back to that idea in my head. I was like, oh, right. Like, I did this when I was young. It's cool that Abby gets to do something like this at her age. So it's like, it's cool that we like got to share that experience, and that she was so helpful. And I was like, yes, thank you for correcting that, because wow, what was I thinking? But it was like, yeah, it was so cool to work with Devin and Abby, because they just had such good perspectives, and they were so helpful with that process. So
Yeah,
yeah.
you can't go after dreams like this alone, can you? I
Right.
mean, it really is. And it's awesome to see how, I mean, I think asking for help is honestly one of the most important things we have to learn to do. And that's something you really were willing to do. You cultivated those relationships and
Hmm.
also cleaned stoves
Yes.
to pay for some of that as well, right? Like
Yep.
that's important.
Hmm.
So I love that. So now, here's the thing is we're getting ready to, as we record this, we're getting ready, you're getting ready for your launch. It's going to be available on Amazon, be going out to the world. What's that feel like?
Scary.
Yeah.
That fear doesn't go away. I mean, like, if I hadn't released it on Wattpad, if I hadn't shared it with editors, like, of course it would be even more scary. But it's that I've been working on this story technically since I was 12, when I had
Right.
those dreams. So it's such a part of me now, this story of all these characters. And it's even crazier about like the circumstances we are right now to
Yeah.
really releasing it right now. It's just such a whirlwind of emotions. But I'm excited to see what people see in the book and how they translate it into their own lives. It was really such a powerful thing to put together, because it kind of just helped me figure everything out too, because
Yeah.
the lessons that are part of the book really just kind of were mirrored kind of the lessons that I had to learn growing up too. So it really just is, it's scary because of how much it impacted my life, and I don't know what people will think of it,
Right.
because you don't know. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to the launch. Super grateful for you and mom and brother and Lise Cartwright for helping me with all of this, the launching process, because this is a crazy part of writing a
Yeah.
book. I mean, you write the book and that's hard, but like, holy cow, launching is even
It's
crazier.
wild, but yeah, I just talked to another author last week, and he's like, I had no idea that I always thought the hard work was writing. And he's
Right.
like, I had no idea that the hard work really doesn't start until, after the writing's done. You're just like, yeah, but that again is a part of the journey. You only learn as you go, and
Right.
it makes all the difference. So, what would you say? We're getting close to the end. We're not all the way there, but what would you say, especially to that person, whether they're 19, 29, 59, and maybe they've got a creative project
Hmm.
bubbling inside of them, but maybe they're a little worried about what would people think, or maybe they've got a little of the voice of, who am I to fill in the blank. what
Hmm.
what encouragement might you offer them at this point?
um well, I totally understand where that feeling comes from.
Yeah.
And that is something that is not a wrong feeling to have, because there is always going to be fear in launching something new or going at something new. But it's it's one of those things where, like, if a person that's about to skydive isn't a little bit afraid, there's probably something a little wrong going on.
That's
So
exactly
it's like,
right.
if you're not afraid to just launch a book, or to work on a project, or start whatever you need to in your business, like, if there isn't a little bit of fear, it's probably doesn't mean you don't have like your heart and soul into it.
Right.
um so that's okay. That's totally okay to have that sense of, but wait, what if they, because that's what I felt. And it took a while to get over that, but because I had the right people in my life and I had the right encouragement, I was able to push through. And it was such a rewarding feeling to get to talk with people about the process, and to hear their thoughts. And yes, it will always be scary. I don't think there will be a time in my life where I'm launching something and I'm like, I don't care. Like if it goes
Right.
wrong, whatever. Like, and if there's no fear in it, then I mean, yeah, I don't know if it means that much to you then.
Right. Exactly. Lose some of the magic, right? If there's
Right.
no fear, then it's like, well, maybe I'm not all that committed anyway. So
Right.
I love that, man. That is awesome. All right. So we're gonna move towards our last question. I want to keep this going. We can keep this going for about another hour and a half in my book, but I'm gonna move towards the last question. But let's talk the name of the book again and where people can find out more about it.
Yep. So the book is called Waking Up Summer. It's the first one in the series.
Yep.
You can go to www.wakingupnovel.com. You can get the first 2 chapters for free, and you can pre-order the novel. You can check out, my brother and I, we made a short film based off of the characters. If you want to check that out.
Yeah. It's horrifying.
It's horrifying, yes. It's also fun. There's funny moments. So yeah,
it's great.
It's all emotions.
Yep.
So you can, go to the website. It's on Amazon, ready to go. So I'm just excited that, even that one person that gave me the like on Wattpad is there to, to help with the journey. 'Cause this is just such a cool process. So yeah.
Oh, I love it. And, I really do think that, we've always talked about you focus on what you can control, right? Like we can't control the reaction. We can't control whether it's a bestseller or those kinds of things. You can do certain things to do your best, right? Bring excellence where you can and all those things, but you kind of have to let go of some of the outcome. But you've been absolutely amazing at navigating this journey. So it's weird. There must be dust in my office or something, allergies or something. I'm trying not to get misty at this point, whatever. We got to check the filter in the furnace.
Right.
But I love it. So let's wrap it up. I always love to come back around to a wisdom of the week, something to send people out with, whether it's a quote, whether it's a thought, whether it's something that you've learned that helps you keep going on creative endeavors like this. So let's send that dream, think, doer out that's been listening going, okay, all right, if Alex can do it, I can do it. Let's give him one last thought to keep him on that journey, keep him on that trajectory.
Yeah. So there is a quote in the book that the main character follows. And that it's live like a tree on a mountaintop. What this meant to me as I was writing the book was, if you ever been on a hike, if you've ever gone into the mountains, sometimes you'll see trees that grow in the rocks. Yeah. And you're like, what? How? And those trees are going through a lot, and they're far away from the forest. But if they just focus on that, how hard it is to get the roots to the rocks, how far away they are from their friends in the forest, they won't see what's up on the mountaintop, which is the beautiful sunrises, the clouds, the entire forest. And so in the book, he has to decide if he's going to think about, I lost everything, society's gone whack. He could look down at all the stuff, but if he just looks down and sees, okay, I'm on the mountaintop, I should just look up. Life gets a lot better, even though it's pretty crazy. And so that just kind of stuck with me as I was writing and as I was going about life, was just deciding to live on the mountaintop and accept that sometimes it sucks, that it's hard sometimes.
Yep.
But there is a good thing about being on a mountaintop, because you do see those beautiful sunrises, and and yeah, that's always been important to me. So yeah,
makes for a much richer life, right? It's not easy, but who wants easy?
Right. Exactly.
Well, Alex Matthews, I'm proud of you, man. This is awesome. It's a joy and honor to have you on the show. It's kind of wild, actually, kind of surreal. So this is very, very cool. Thanks. All right, Dream Think Doers, go check it out. Wakingupnovel.com. get you the first couple chapters of the book. It also points you to where everything's at on Amazon. You can watch the video that Alex was talking about that he and Ben did, and it's incredibly shot, but it probably will also allow you to see some of the other short films that they've got as well. If you go down that rabbit hole, prepare yourself.
Exactly.
So it's awesome. But thanks for being a dream think doer, my friend. Proud
Thank
of you,
you.
buddy.
Thank you for having me on the show.